I don't know if I said the name right. Fast Facts, Chapter 1, Henry Box Brown. Oh, hey, I remember Henry Box Brown. Chapter 2, William and Ellen Craft, Louis William. Chapter 3. Chapter 4, Frederick Douglass. Fast Facts. These were approximately 3.2, oh my god, these are a lot of facts. 3.2 million enslaved people in the United States in 1850. There were 18 free states out of 33 before the U.S. Civil War. The Underground Railroad was a secret network of people who had helped slaves escape from the slave states in the south to the free states in the north. Distances between hideouts on the Underground Railroad ranged from 10 to 20 miles. There were more than 3,000 stations in the Underground Railroad. The Fugitive Slave Act was a federal law that required slaves who escaped to be returned to their owners if they were captured. Approximately 330 black people were forced to return to slavery because of the act. Slavery was finally abolished when the Third Amendment to the Constitution was passed in 1865. However, it was many years before all black people were actually free. Henry Box Brown. Henry Brown, a Virginia slave, stood on a Richmond, Virginia street corner with an aching heart as he watched 350 slaves walk by. Among them was his pregnant wife, Nancy, with tears streaming down his face. Henry pushed his way toward her, grabbed her hand, and shared words of love. Finally forced to separate, Henry hugged Nancy one last time and looked longingly at his 3 young children riding in wagons behind the adult slaves. His whole family had been sold to a man in North Carolina. No whipping Henry had ever endured compared with the hurt of this separation. On that day, Henry vowed to no longer be a slave. Despite the danger involved, he made a plan to escape. Henry decided he would hide in a large wooden box and have himself shipped to a free state. Henry's friend, James Caesar Anthony Smith, who was a free black man, promised to help him. James knew a store owner who could help, a white man named Samuel Alexander Smith. Virginia had the largest number of slaves in the United States in the 1860s. Oh yeah, I remember when he went in the box. Samuel believed slavery was wrong. As a conductor for the Underground Railroad, Samuel agreed to help Henry escape. First, Henry needed the right box. Henry chose a large wooden crate and wrote on the top in large letters, "This side up." On another side, Samuel put the address of James Miller McComb, a member of the Anti-Slavery Society. He had agreed to accept the box when it arrived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'll read the Underground Railroad after I read the other one on the right. On one of the crate's sides, Henry drilled 3 holes opposite where his face would be. This provided him air to breathe during the long trip. All Henry planned to take with him was a container of water and some biscuits. On March 29, 1849, early in the morning, Henry wedged his stout 5 foot 8 inch, 200-pound body into the box. Samuel and James nailed the box, shut it, and tied it with straps. The Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad had no trains and no tracks. Rather, it was a loosely organized group of people in places designed to help enslaved people escape slavery from the South. Underground meant it was a secret. Railroad referred to the transportation slaves needed to reach safety. Conductors guided escaping slaves in moving from one hideout to the next. Most slaves headed to either the free northern states or Canada. Underground railroad sites included such hiding places as basements, cellars, and hidden spaces in walls or furniture. Approximately 100,000 slaves escaped to the Underground Railroad. That's a lot of slaves if you ask me. Okay. Stuffed in the box like a sausage, Henry endured the 27-hour trip over 350 miles, 563 kilometers, of railroad and water. Henry almost died before he reached his destination. People handling the box either didn't see or ignored the "this side up" sign. They tipped the box over and left. Henry suspended upside down for more than an hour and a half. In the cramped space, he could not move. Henry later wrote that he felt his eyes swelling as if they would burst from their sockets. Unfortunately, 2 passengers looking for a place to sit down chose Henry's box. They flipped it over, turning Henry right side up. When the box arrived in Philadelphia, it was placed with the luggage at the depot. There it stayed until approximately 7 p.m. when someone with a wagon came to collect it. The driver took the unopened crate to Mick Kim's address, which was printed on the box. Inside the house, Mick Kim and 3 other members of the Anti-Slavery Society stared at the box. They wondered if the person inside was dead or alive. Henry kept quiet. He didn't know if he had arrived at the proper address. Then Mick Kim knocked on the crate and asked, "Is all right within?" Henry replied, "All right," using saws and axes. Okay, now that really doesn't sound safe. The men removed the lid from the box. A soaking wet Henry tried to stand up, but the long, hot trip had made him weak and dehydrated. He fainted to the ground. What's the point of even getting that water when you're not even going to drink it? When Henry woke up, he rejoiced in the friendly faces around him. They all seemed glad to see him alive. From that day on, he became known as Henry Box Brown, a man who successfully used the Underground Railroad to achieve freedom. And this is just a map of the free countries. Alright, William and Ellen Craft. Married slaves William and Ellen Craft longed to be free. They both lived in Macon, Georgia, but they lived apart because they had different owners. The two constantly feared being sold. Christmas was nearing, and slave owners often gave their favorite slaves time to visit their families. William's and Ellen's owners both gave them 3 days away from their cabinet making and seamstress work. Instead of taking the time to rest, William and Ellen planned to use those days to escape. They didn't have time to travel only at night, as most runaway slaves did. They knew they needed to reach a free state in 3 days before their owners noticed they were missing. Then William had an idea, and the two made a daring plan to escape in full view. Ellen, whose father was white, had very pale skin. They decided to disguise her as a wealthy, young, white man. Some slaves were allowed to have jobs outside of their homes. However, most of their own earnings would go to their owners. Ellen, in part of her disguise. Ooh, that's a nice disguise. Then William would pose as his slave. Ellen dressed in a pair of trousers she had made. Since she could not read nor write, she placed her right arm in a sling to avoid having to sign her name anywhere. What? Why would you have to sign your name? Okay, She also needed to hide her smooth facial skin that had no beard. She wrapped a cloth under her chin and over her cheeks. Then she tied it on the top of her head. This looked like a bandage on her face. William cut her hair straight across like the back, like a man's haircut. Green glasses and a top hat secretly purchased by William completed her new look. Ellen and William needed to travel more than 1,000 miles, 1,609 kilometers, to safety. The first leg of their journey was 200 miles, 322 kilometers, from Macon to Savannah, Georgia. On December 21, 1848, Ellen bought their train tickets. She used money the two had saved from the little they were allowed to keep from their work. The entire trip was filled with danger. Ellen and William had to ride in separate train cars. Ellen rode in the car reserved for white people. William had to ride in the car for black people. Just as William settled into his seat, he saw his employer from his cabinet-making job looking into the train windows. William started to panic. He turned his head and slid as low as he could in the seat. Just as the man reached William's car, the engineer clanged a bell, and the train pulled away from the station. William breathed a sigh of relief. Ellen stared out the window at all the people rushing into the train. When the train started, she turned from the window and gasped. The man sitting next to her was a friend of her owner. All right. I think this is gonna be the last page, guys. Ellen feared her master had sent the man to bring her back. However, he did not recognize her. Ellen spent the next 8 hours pretending to be deaf so that she did not have to talk. The next leg of the journey was on a steamboat to Charleston, South Carolina. When they arrived in Charleston, Ellen tried to buy train tickets to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but the ticket seller insisted she sign a paper proving William was her slave. he would not let them proceed without a signature. The captain of the steamboat on which they had just ridden saw what was happening. He said that he knew the gentleman and signed his own name for Ellen. Ellen and William then boarded the train on their way to Pennsylvania, a free state. On their last major train stop before Philadelphia, a border patrol officer stopped them. He demanded proof William belonged to Ellen. The bell rang to signal that the train was pulling out of the station. The officer changed his mind. He looked at Ellen's bandages and sling and told the clerk, "Let this gentleman and slave pass. He's not well. It is a pity to stop him." William and Ellen arrived in Philadelphia the next morning, Christmas Day, 1848. As they left the train, Ellen cried out, "Thank God, William, we're safe." Black and white people had to ride in different cars on the train. If a black person had entered the white people's car, he or she would have been in trouble. Alright, that's it for today. We might read this book again. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Also, shout out to my BFL, Cami. Make sure to sub to her channel, November Nova, with the O's crossed out. Bye! Peace out!